In the dusty village of Umuwaka, a father looked at his daughter and spoke 4 words that would shatter her world forever. Take my daughter instead. But what happened next will make you believe that sometimes God's most beautiful gifts come wrapped in your deepest pain. This is Mercy's story, and by the end, you'll understand why your current chapter is not your final chapter. Umuwaka Village, where red dust settles on broken dreams, and poverty dances with desperation in every compound. Here, in a house that should have been filled with love, lived a 24-year-old woman whose name would prove to be prophetic: Mercy. But Mercy was the one thing she had never received. 8 years ago, on a night when the rains refused to come, Mercy held her mother's hand as life slipped away during childbirth. That was the last time she felt truly loved. That was the last time she felt like she belonged somewhere. That was the last time Chief Okoro smiled. Chief Okoro wasn't always a monster. The villagers still whispered about the man he used to be: gentle, hardworking, a man who sang traditional songs while he farmed. But grief has a way of poisoning even the purest hearts. And when he married Mama Ada 2 years later, Mercy learned that stepmothers in real life can be crueler than any fairy tale ever dared to imagine. Every morning at 4 a.m., while the village slept, Mercy's feet touched the cold floor. No alarm clock needed. Hunger and fear were her daily wake-up calls. Picture this. Before the sun kissed the horizon, Mercy had already swept 3 compounds, fetched water from the stream 2 kilometers away, started the fire for breakfast she wouldn't be allowed to eat, and prepared for another day of being treated like a stranger in her own home. She eats too much, Mama Ada would tell Chief Okoro every evening. She's lazy. She's ungrateful. She's the reason our crops are failing. Lies. All lies. But a broken man believes broken words. Mercy's hands were maps of hard labor. Scars from thorns, calluses from tools, burns from cooking fires. Her back ached from carrying loads that grown men would struggle with. But the deepest wounds, those were invisible. Those were the wounds that bled silently in her heart every night. The entire village of Umuwaka knew. They saw her walking to the stream at dawn, shoulders bent under the weight of rejection. They heard Mama Ada's harsh words echoing across compounds. They watched Chief Okoro stumble home drunk, anger blazing in his eyes. And what did they do? Nothing. They pitied her in whispers, but protected her in silence. Because nobody wanted to face Chief Okoro's madness. Nobody wanted to get involved in family matters. But here's what nobody understood about Mercy. Every morning when she woke up, she made a choice. She chose to keep going. She chose to keep hoping. She chose to keep believing that somewhere, somehow, someone would see her worth. She didn't know it yet, but that someone was already on his way to Umuwaka village. Because in exactly 3 days, a stranger would arrive at Chief Okoro's compound. A man with kind eyes and a secret that would change everything. A man who would look at Mercy and see not a burden, but a treasure. But first he would have to survive Chief Okoro's greed, and Mercy would have to survive the betrayal that would set her free. 3 days later, as Mercy bent over the washing basin behind her father's house, she heard something that made her heart skip. Footsteps. Confident footsteps, walking straight toward their compound. In Umuwaka village, strangers meant one of 3 things: trouble, debt collectors, or answered prayers. The man who walked into Chief Okoro's compound didn't look like he belonged in Umuwaka village. His clothes were simple, faded jeans, a plain shirt, but they fit him like they were made for him. His shoes had seen better days, but his posture, His posture spoke of confidence that money can't buy. And when he smiled at Chief Okoro, Mercy noticed something that would haunt her dreams. His eyes were kind, genuinely, deeply kind. When was the last time she'd seen kind eyes in her father's compound? "I'm Gabriel," he said, extending a hand that Chief Okoro barely shook. "I hear you have farmland available for lease. I'm looking for 4 acres to cultivate yam and cassava." Chief Okoro's bloodshot eyes suddenly sharpened. Here was opportunity. Here was money. Here was someone he could exploit. Gabriel didn't just lease the land. He transformed it. Every morning at sunrise, while Mercy prepared breakfast she wouldn't eat, Gabriel was already in the fields. He worked like a man possessed. No, like a man with purpose. And slowly, Chief Okoro's dying farmland began to bloom again. But Mercy noticed things that others didn't. The way Gabriel's hands, though calloused from work, had no old scars. The way he spoke, educated, careful, like someone used to being listened to. And that watch. Oh, that watch. Hidden under his work shirt, she caught glimpses of something that cost more than most villagers made in a year. Who was Gabriel really? And why was he here? It started with the smallest gesture. One scorching afternoon, as Mercy carried water from the stream, her knees buckled under the weight. The calabash crashed to the ground, precious water seeping into the thirsty earth. She braced herself for Mama Ada's screaming, for her father's rage. Instead, she heard a gentle voice. "Are you hurt?" Gabriel. He had seen everything. "Let me help you," he said, reaching for the calabash. "No," Mercy whispered, fear flashing in her eyes. "If they see you helping me." Gabriel's jaw tightened. In that moment, he understood more than Mercy realized. He understood that she lived in a prison, and he understood that someone needed to set her free. But he also understood that freedom sometimes comes with a price he was already calculating in his mind. As Gabriel's crops flourished, Chief Okoro's appetite for alcohol grew. Every naira Gabriel paid should have gone to household needs, to Mercy's welfare, to basic decency. Instead, it went to palm wine and local gin. And when the harvest came, beautiful, abundant, with a fortune, Chief Okoro made his move. "Business is good," he told Gabriel with a drunken grin. "But I need you to work longer. Pay later." Gabriel's kind eyes hardened. "We had an agreement, Chief." "Agreements change," Chief Okoro laughed. "This is village business. You're not from here. You don't understand." But Gabriel understood more than Chief Okoro knew. 4 months of unpaid labor, 4 months of watching Mercy suffer, 4 months of planning. Tomorrow, Gabriel would walk into Chief Okoro's compound one final time. Tomorrow he would demand his payment. And tomorrow, Chief Okoro would make an offer so shocking, so heartless, that even the village would gasp. But what nobody knew, not Mercy, not Chief Okoro, not even Mama Ada, was that Gabriel had been waiting for exactly this moment. The morning that would change Mercy's life forever started like any other. She swept, she cooked, she pretended not to exist. But across the compound, Gabriel was preparing for a conversation that would expose the true heart of Chief Okoro. A conversation that would prove some fathers are capable of the unthinkable, and some strangers are capable of miracles. Gabriel found Chief Okoro under the mango tree, already drinking despite the early hour. "Chief," Gabriel said, his voice steady but firm, "it's time we settle accounts." Chief Okoro's bloodshot eyes squinted up at him. Settle what? 4 months of labor. Crops worth over 200,000 naira. You haven't paid me a single kobo. The silence that followed was pregnant with danger. Chief Okoro stumbled to his feet, palm wine sloshing from his cup. You ate my food. You used my land. You think that comes free? Gabriel's jaw tightened. I brought my own food. I improved your land. We had an agreement. Agreements? You city people think you can come here and dictate to us. But Gabriel wasn't backing down. Not today. Not when Mercy's freedom hung in the balance. Fine, Chief Okoro snarled. You want your money? Let me show you my money. He turned his pockets inside out. Empty. He grabbed a rusty tin from under his chair, 3 crumpled naira notes, 4 months of Gabriel's labor, hundreds of thousands in harvest value. Gone. All gone. Dissolved in cheap alcohol and cheaper pride. From the kitchen window, Mercy watched the scene unfold. She saw Gabriel's face change from frustration to disbelief to something that looked like pity. She saw her father's shame transforming into rage, and she felt something cold crawling up her spine, because she knew her father. And when Chief Okoro was cornered, he became dangerous. Chief Okoro looked at Gabriel with the cunning of a desperate man. Then he looked toward the kitchen where Mercy stood frozen, and he spoke 4 words that shattered a daughter's world. Take my daughter instead. She's strong, Chief Okoro continued, his voice gaining momentum with each word. She can work, she can cook, she can clean, she never complains. You want payment? She's worth more than money. She's worth her keep. Take her. We're even. A father, trading his daughter like cattle, trading her like she was property to be bartered, trading her like she meant nothing. The sound that came from the kitchen was barely human. Mercy stumbled into the compound, tears streaming, hands shaking. Papa, no! Please, Papa, no! She fell to her knees in the red dust. I'll work harder. I'll eat less. I'll be better. Please don't send me away. Papa, I'm your daughter. I'm your blood. Please. Chief Okoro couldn't even look at her. You've been nothing but a burden since your mother died, he spat. At least this way, you'll be useful to someone. Mama Ada appeared in the doorway, not to defend her stepdaughter, but to celebrate. Finally, she smirked. Finally, this house will have peace. Two parents, 2 people who should have protected her, both celebrating her exile. All eyes turned to Gabriel. His face was unreadable. His silence stretched like eternity. Mercy looked up at him through her tears, her last hope crumbling. Would this kind stranger also see her as just another transaction? Gabriel's voice, when it finally came, was steady. I accept. 2 words that sounded like betrayal. 2 words that felt like abandonment. 2 words that Mercy would later understand were actually the beginning of her salvation. Because Gabriel had just said yes to the most expensive rescue mission of his life. He had just agreed to save a woman who thought she was being sold. Pack your things, Gabriel said quietly. We leave within the hour. Mercy's things fit in a torn plastic bag, 2 faded dresses, a broken comb, a photo of her mother, 24 years of life reduced to what could fit in one hand. No goodbye from her father, no blessing from her stepmother, no tears from anyone but her. As they walked toward the road where Gabriel's car waited, Mercy looked back once. The compound where she'd grown up. The house where she'd been broken daily. The father who'd just traded her for debt forgiveness. She didn't know it yet, but she would never live there again. She didn't know it yet, but she was walking toward a palace. She didn't know it yet, but the man beside her was about to give her the world. The car that carried Mercy away from Umuaka village was heading toward Lagos, toward skyscrapers that touched the clouds, toward opportunities she'd never dreamed of, toward a man who would show her what real love looked like. But first, she had to survive the journey. First, she had to learn to trust again. First, she had to discover that sometimes God uses the worst betrayal to deliver the greatest blessing. Because what waited for her in Lagos would make her father's cruelty look like a twisted gift from heaven. The journey from Umuaka village to Lagos should have taken 4 hours, but for Mercy, it felt like traveling between two different worlds. Behind her lay poverty, rejection, and a father's betrayal. Ahead of her lay, well, she had no idea what lay ahead. She sat in Gabriel's car, and oh, what a car it was. Watching her old life disappear in the rearview mirror. She didn't know it yet, but she was about to discover that fairy tales can come true, even for broken village girls with torn plastic bags. The first skyscraper that pierced the horizon made Mercy gasp. Then came the second, the third, the 10th. Buildings so tall, they seemed to hold up the sky itself. Cars everywhere, not the old battered vehicles of her village, but sleek machines that gleamed like jewelry. People dressed in clothes that cost more than her father made in a year. This wasn't just a different city. This was a different planet. Gabriel watched her wonder with something that looked like satisfaction. "First time in Lagos?" he asked gently. Mercy could only nod, her voice lost somewhere between fear and amazement. "Don't worry," Gabriel said, and for the first time since leaving the village, she heard kindness in his voice. "You're going to love where we're going." Where they were going would redefine everything Mercy thought she knew about life. Victoria Island. If Lagos was another planet, Victoria Island was another galaxy. Mansions that looked like palaces lined streets cleaner than hospital floors. Security guards in crisp uniforms, gardens that belonged in magazines, swimming pools visible through ornate gates. And Gabriel's car fit right in, like it belonged here. Like he belonged here. When they stopped at massive iron gates, decorated with gold details, Mercy's heart sank. "Is this where you work?" she whispered. Gabriel smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him all day. "Something like that," he said. The gates swung open automatically. They drove through manicured gardens toward a house that defied description. No, not a house. A mansion, a palace, a dream made of marble and glass. What do you call a building that has more bathrooms than your village has houses? What do you call a driveway that's longer than the main road in Umuaka? What do you call a fountain in the front yard that's more beautiful than anything Mercy had ever seen? You call it home. Gabriel's home. "You'll stay in the guest quarters," Gabriel said, leading her toward a smaller building. Smaller. But this smaller building was larger than Chief Okoro's entire compound. Air conditioning, running water, electricity that never failed, a bed with sheets softer than clouds. Is this really for me?" Mercy whispered. Gabriel's voice was gentle. "This is just the beginning." Mrs. Elizabeth emerged from the main house like royalty greeting visitors. Elegant, poised, dressed in fabric that whispered wealth with every movement. But her eyes held secrets. "So this is Mercy," she said, studying the village girl with interest that seemed too intense for a first meeting. "Gabriel has told me so much about you." "You're welcome here, my dear," Mrs. Elizabeth continued. "We've been expecting you." Expecting her? How could they have been expecting her when Gabriel's acceptance of Chief Okoro's offer seemed so spontaneous? "I hope you'll be very happy with us," Mrs. Elizabeth smiled. "I have a feeling you're going to fit in perfectly." There was something in that smile. something that suggested Mrs. Elizabeth knew more about Mercy's story than she was letting on. "I understand you're an excellent cook," Mrs. Elizabeth said the next morning. "Would you be interested in helping in our kitchen? The pay is 150,000 naira per month." Mercy nearly fainted. 150,000 naira! That was more than her father had ever seen at one time. That was more than most people in Umuaka made in a year. That was freedom. As days turned into weeks, something beautiful began to happen. Gabriel treated Mercy not like a servant, not like property, not like a burden. He treated her like a human being. He asked about her dreams, her fears, her hopes for the future. And slowly, carefully, like a flower opening to sunlight, Mercy began to heal. Every evening after the household settled into quiet, Gabriel would find Mercy in the garden. "What did you want to be when you were young?" he asked one night. "A doctor," Mercy whispered, as if saying it too loud would break the spell. "Why a doctor?" "Because doctors heal people, and I know what it feels like to be broken." Gabriel was quiet for a long moment. "It's not too late, you know." "University costs money," Mercy said sadly. "Money I'll never have." Gabriel's smile was mysterious. "You'd be surprised what's possible when someone believes in you." He pulled out a brochure. University of Lagos, medical school. "Just think about it," he said. "Don't let anyone tell you what you can't do, especially not yourself." For the first time in 8 years, Mercy dared to hope for something bigger than survival. It happened on a Tuesday evening. Gabriel was telling her about his own childhood, about a time he got stuck in a tree trying to impress a girl, and Mercy laughed. Not a polite chuckle, not a nervous giggle, a real, honest, joyful laugh. The sound surprised them both. It had been so long since laughter lived in Mercy's throat. Gabriel's eyes sparkled. "There she is," he said softly. "There's the real Mercy." "Why are you so kind to me?" Mercy asked one evening. Gabriel looked at her with an intensity that made her heart skip. "Because you deserve kindness. Because you deserve respect. Because you deserve to be seen for who you really are." "And who am I?" "You're brilliant. You're strong. You're beautiful. You're worthy of love." Words no one had ever spoken to her. Words she'd never believed about herself. Words that began to change everything. But every paradise has its serpent, and the serpent was about to arrive. From London, wealthy, arrogant, accustomed to getting whatever he wanted, Mrs. Elizabeth's son was coming home, and he was about to set his sights on the village girl who had captured everyone's attention. The test of Mercy's character was about to begin. Paradise was about to be tested. She had found peace in the gardens, purpose in the kitchen, hope in Gabriel's evening conversations. She had even started believing she deserved happiness. But every Eden has its serpent. And this serpent was flying first class from London, armed with wealth, charm, and an appetite for conquest. His name was Victor, and he was about to turn Mercy's world upside down. The convoy of black SUVs announced his arrival before he even stepped out. Victor emerged from the lead vehicle like a movie star at a premiere. Designer suit that cost more than most people's cars. Watch that could buy a house. Confidence that filled the entire compound. At 28, Victor had everything money could buy, and the arrogance to prove it. "Mother!" he called out, embracing Mrs. Elizabeth with theatrical flair. London was profitable but boring. I miss the chaos of Lagos. And then he saw her, Mercy, carrying fresh flowers from the garden, dressed in a simple yellow dress that somehow made her glow like sunshine. Victor's conversation stopped mid-sentence. His eyes locked onto her with the intensity of a predator spotting prey. "Mother," he said, never taking his eyes off Mercy. "You didn't tell me we had such beautiful staff." Mrs. Elizabeth's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "That's Mercy. She's special to us." Special. The word hung in the air like a warning. Victor didn't waste time with subtlety. Within hours of his arrival, expensive gifts began appearing in Mercy's quarters. French perfume, Italian silk scarves, jewelry that sparkled like captured starlight. "I noticed you admiring the roses in the garden," he said, presenting her with a diamond bracelet. "This reminded me of you. Beautiful, rare, and deserving of the finest setting." Mercy stared at the bracelet, overwhelmed. In her village, people fought over bread. Here, a stranger was giving her diamonds. Victor was everything Gabriel wasn't. Where Gabriel was gentle, Victor was commanding. Where Gabriel listened, Victor performed. Where Gabriel offered quiet conversations, Victor offered grand gestures. "You're wasting your talents in the kitchen," Victor declared. "A woman like you should be adorned, not hidden. You belong in boardrooms, not servant quarters. You belong by my side. I could send you to Harvard," Victor said casually over dinner. "Medical school, full scholarship, all expenses paid." Mercy's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Harvard? The dream she'd whispered to Gabriel under the stars. "I could set you up in London, Paris, New York, anywhere you want to practice medicine. All you have to do is say yes." Say yes to what? Victor's smile suggested he meant much more than education. The next morning, Victor took her shopping. Not to local markets, to stores where a single dress cost more than her yearly salary. "Try this," he said, selecting a gown that belonged on red carpets. When Mercy emerged from the fitting room, even the sales staff gasped. She looked like royalty. She looked like she belonged in Victor's world. "This is who you really are," Victor whispered. "This is who you could be with me." Gabriel watched the transformation with growing unease. He saw the expensive gifts accumulating in Mercy's room. He saw the way she looked at Victor's grand gestures. He saw the seeds of doubt being planted in her mind. "Be careful, Mercy," he said one evening. "Not all gifts come without strings attached." "Victor is kind to me," Mercy replied, but her voice lacked conviction. "Victor wants something from you," Gabriel said gently. "The question is, what are you willing to give?" But here's what made Gabriel different from every other man in Mercy's life. He loved her enough to let her choose. "If Victor makes you happy," Gabriel said, though the words seemed to cost him everything, "then you should consider his offer." "I want what's best for you, Mercy, even if what's best for you isn't me." Love that puts the beloved's happiness above its own pain. Love that Mercy had never witnessed before. Mrs. Elizabeth began having private conversations with Mercy. "Victor is a good man," she said over afternoon tea. "Successful, generous. He could give you everything you've never had. Think of your future, dear. Think of your security. Love is beautiful, but love doesn't pay for medical school. Love doesn't guarantee you'll never be hungry again." Words that echoed the fears Mercy had carried since childhood. Every night, Mercy lay awake wrestling with impossible choices. Security or sincerity, luxury or love, guaranteed future or uncertain heart. Victor represented everything she'd never had: wealth, status, opportunity. Gabriel represented everything she'd never experienced: genuine care, patient love, quiet strength. How do you choose between your head and your heart when both are screaming different truths? Victor cornered her in the library one evening. "I know Gabriel has feelings for you," he said, his charm slipping to reveal something harder underneath. "But what can he offer you? A life of uncertainty? A future built on hope? I can offer you guarantees. I can offer you the world." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I can make you forget you were ever that broken village girl. Choose wisely, Mercy. Opportunities like this don't come twice." The pressure was becoming unbearable. Victor's gifts were getting more expensive, his proposals more direct. Mrs. Elizabeth's hints were becoming less subtle. And Gabriel was pulling away, giving her space to make her choice. But space felt like abandonment to a woman who'd been abandoned before. The test was coming, the moment that would define not just her future, but her character. Because sometimes the greatest battles aren't against poverty or cruelty. Sometimes the greatest battles are against our own fears of losing what we've finally found. Tomorrow, Mrs. Elizabeth would make her final play. Tomorrow, Victor would demand his answer. Tomorrow, Mercy would have to choose between everything she'd never had and everything she'd never felt. The morning that would define Mercy's destiny arrived with deceptive calm. She had barely slept, her mind wrestling with impossible choices. Harvard Medical School or humble love? Guaranteed luxury or uncertain loyalty? Security with Victor or sincerity with Gabriel? But what Mercy didn't know was that today she would face the most important test of her life. A test orchestrated by the very people she trusted most. Mrs. Elizabeth requested a private breakfast with Mercy in the elegant dining room. Fine china, crystal glasses, fresh orchids on the table. The kind of setting where life-changing conversations happen. "My dear," Mrs. Elizabeth began, her voice gentle but purposeful, "we need to discuss your future. Victor is serious about you, more serious than I've ever seen him about any woman. This is not a game to him, Mercy. This is marriage." Mrs. Elizabeth leaned forward, her eyes intense with significance. "Do you understand what marrying into our family would mean? Victor's inheritance alone is worth 50 billion naira. 50 billion. Our hotels span 3 continents, our investments touch every major industry. You would never want for anything, ever." Mercy's teacup trembled in her hands. 50 billion naira? The number was incomprehensible. That was more money than her entire village would see in 100 lifetimes. "I've spoken with Gabriel," Mrs. Elizabeth continued carefully. "He's a good man, a kind man, but he's also practical. I've offered to compensate him handsomely for stepping aside, enough to start his own business, enough to secure his future. Everyone wins, my dear. Everyone gets what they need." Mercy felt the room spinning. They were discussing her like a business transaction. Again, just like her father had done, just like she'd sworn would never happen again. "And your dreams of becoming a doctor?" Mrs. Elizabeth smiled warmly. "Harvard Medical School has already been contacted. Full scholarship, private tutoring, whatever you need. You could be Dr. Mercy Elizabeth Stevens within 5 years. All you have to do is say yes to Victor's proposal." Everything Mercy had ever dreamed of, wrapped in a golden package. But somehow, it felt like chains made of diamonds. After Mrs. Elizabeth left, Mercy sat alone in the garden where she'd found so much peace. The practical voice in her head was screaming, "Take it! Take everything! You'll never be hungry again, never be abandoned again. Gabriel will be fine. He'll be rich too. Everyone wins. You'd be crazy to choose poverty over wealth. Love doesn't pay bills. Remember what happened with your father? Remember what it feels like to have nothing." But her heart whispered something different. What good is the whole world if you lose your soul? Gabriel sees you, really sees you. Victor sees what he wants to own. Remember how Gabriel treats you when no one is watching? Remember how Victor's eyes change when he doesn't get his way. Remember that you promised yourself you'd never be anyone's property again. That evening, Gabriel found her exactly where he expected, in their spot in the garden. "Mrs. Elizabeth told me about the offer," he said quietly. "About Harvard, about Victor's proposal, about everything." Mercy couldn't meet his eyes. "Gabriel, You don't need to explain," he interrupted gently. "I understand. This is an opportunity that could change your entire life." Gabriel took her hands, those beautiful, gentle hands that had shown her such kindness. "I love you, Mercy. I love you enough to want what's best for you, even if what's best for you isn't me. If Victor can give you everything you've dreamed of, then you should take it. Your happiness matters more to me than my own heart." Tears streaming down both their faces, Gabriel kissed her forehead one last time. "Whatever you choose, I'll support, because that's what real love does." Then he walked away, leaving Mercy alone with the hardest decision of her life. The next morning, Victor appeared with a ring. Not just any ring. A diamond so large it could blind satellites. "I'm not a patient man, Mercy," he said, his charm now edged with demand. "I've given you time to think. I've shown you what I can offer. It's time to decide. Will you be Mrs. Victor Elizabeth? Will you claim your throne? Or will you choose to remain a village girl playing house with a poor man?" Mercy looked at the ring, at Victor's handsome, expectant face, at the luxury surrounding her. She thought about her father's betrayal, about years of poverty, about dreams deferred. She thought about security, about never being hungry again, about medical school. And then she thought about Gabriel's eyes, about his gentle hands, about love that asks for nothing but gives everything. When she spoke, her voice was steady, clear, unshakable.
"Victor, I'm honored by your proposal. Any woman would be lucky to have the security and opportunities you're offering. But I can't accept."
Victor's face darkened. "Can't or won't?"
"Won't,"
Mercy replied firmly.
"because I've learned something about myself these past months. I'd rather be poor with a man who values me than rich with one who wants to possess me. I've been treated like property before, Victor. My father sold me to pay a debt. I swore I'd never let anyone treat me like a commodity again. Gabriel loves me for who I am, not for what I can do for him. He sees my worth when I can't see it myself. That's not something you can put a price on. That's not something you can buy with all your billions."
Victor's mask finally slipped completely. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life," he snarled. "You think Gabriel really loves you? You think this isn't all just pity for a broken village girl? You'll regret this. You'll come crawling back when reality hits. And when you do, this offer won't be on the table anymore." But Mercy stood firm. She'd faced worse threats from better men. She'd survived her father's cruelty. She could survive Victor's tantrum. Mrs. Elizabeth had been watching from the doorway. When Victor stormed out, she approached Mercy with an expression that was proud. "That
was exactly the answer I was hoping for. "Excuse me?"
Mercy asked, confused. Mrs. Elizabeth smiled, but this time it was genuine, warm, almost maternal.
"My dear girl, you've just passed the most important test of your life."
"Test? What test? What are you talking about?" Mrs. Elizabeth's smile widened. "Sit down, my dear. There are some things about Gabriel you need to know. Some things about this entire situation that aren't what they seem. Some things that will make you understand why this test was necessary. And some things that will prove you were right to choose love over luxury." She began to explain, and with each word, Mercy's world shifted on its axis. "My real name," Mrs. Elizabeth revealed, "is Elizabeth Okoro. Gabriel is my firstborn son. Victor is his younger brother." Mercy gasped, the pieces slowly clicking into place. The expensive car, the comfortable demeanor, the hidden watch. It all made a terrible, beautiful sense. "Gabriel has always been a man of principle," Mrs. Elizabeth continued. "After 2 painful experiences with women who only saw his family's wealth, he became disillusioned. He wanted to find someone who would love him, truly love him, for who he was, not for his billions. He wanted someone who saw the man, not the money. So, he decided to test the world, to live as if he had nothing. A wave of understanding, then a fresh surge of tears washed over Mercy. So, the worn clothes, the servant's room, the cruel payment deal? Mrs. Elizabeth nodded gently. All part of the plan. Gabriel knew he needed to get you out of that house, away from your father's cruelty. When Chief Okoro offered you as payment, Gabriel didn't hesitate. It was his chance to save you, to bring you into our home and to see if your spirit, so broken yet so resilient, held the purity he was searching for. He already saw your worth, Mercy, even when you couldn't." Mercy looked up, tears streaming down her face. But these were tears of revelation, not sorrow. You did all this? For me?" Gabriel, who had quietly re-entered the room, knelt beside her, wiping her tears with his thumb. "You were never a servant, Mercy. You were a queen who just didn't know it yet. I loved you from the moment I saw you, carrying that calabash, your shoulders bent but your spirit unbroken. I love you, Mercy, not just because you stayed, but because, even when the world told you you were worthless, you still chose love, kindness, and truth. And that's exactly why I chose you." Mercy finally understood. This was not a betrayal, but the most profound act of love she had ever known. She had been sold, yes, but into salvation. She had been tested, but found worthy beyond measure. Her past, once a haunting shadow, was now a testament to her strength, a foundation upon which a glorious future could be built. The news of Mercy's true identity and her impending marriage to Gabriel Chukwuma Okoro, the heir to the Elizabeth Stevens fortune, swept through Omuaka village like a benevolent whirlwind. The whispers changed from pity to awe, from gossip to reverence. Chief Okoro, sobered by the shocking truth and shamed by his monstrous actions, lived out his days a hollow man, a monument to a father's ultimate failure. Mama Ada disappeared, unable to face the stark reality of Mercy's triumph. Mercy's wedding was not merely a ceremony, it was a coronation, a celebration of a woman who chose love over luxury, dignity over desperation. Dressed in a gown that shimmered like captured starlight, Mercy walked down the aisle, her head held high, radiating a beauty that came from within. Gabriel, his eyes filled with adoration, met her at the altar, a king welcoming his queen. Mercy never forgot where she came from. The scars on her hands remained, not as reminders of pain, but as symbols of her resilience. With Gabriel by her side, she poured her heart and resources into Umuaka. A state-of-the-art clinic rose from the red dust, staffed by doctors she sponsored through medical school, including herself, finally fulfilling her childhood dream. The clinic brought healing and hope, and it was named Lady Mercy Free Clinic. She established a foundation to empower girls, ensuring no child in Umuaka would ever be treated as property again. One day, a young girl, shy but hopeful, approached Mercy at the stream, carrying an empty calabash. "Auntie Mercy," she whispered, "you saved my mummy when she was sick. I want to be like you." Mercy smiled, her eyes filled with a love that transcended time. "That's why I came back, my love." So no girl grows up feeling unseen, unheard, or unloved. She built bridges not just of stone but of opportunity, connecting Umuaka to the wider world. The stream where she once shed silent tears became a place of joyous laughter, a testament to her story. Once rejected, now restored. Once discarded, now divine. Mercy's story became a legend, whispered from generation to generation. The girl who was sold like property, but lived like royalty. The girl they tried to bury, but didn't know was a seed. Mercy's story is one of triumph, but it's also a mirror for yours. What if rejection is the beginning of redirection? What if your true worth is waiting to be discovered by the right eyes? Sometimes, the very pain that tries to break you is the fire that refines you. Sometimes, being rejected by people is God's way of making space for something infinitely better. What chapter of your life are you in right now? And what unexpected gifts might it hold? If this story inspires you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.